Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Russia preparing for a new offensive in Ukraine, and it could be the biggest and most important battle of the war. It's coming as the Russians appoint a brutal new commander for their military operations. Many American Christians have a deep love for Ukraine because they helped spread the gospel there after the fall of the Soviet Union. We'll hear from one former missionary who's working to help the war-torn country. Plus, America's digital economy needs semiconductors to survive, but there's a shortage.
We're seeing very vulnerable, shaky supply chains right now, and it's disrupting the U.S. economy.
See what's being done to fix this disruption. Then later,
some politicians who are trying to tear my family apart simply because my son is transgender.
Disney joins a trans ad campaign. We have a look at why Disney may be focused on what's being called woke movement policies. All these stories and more are coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
And we begin with the war in Ukraine entering a new phase after suffering defeat by failing to take the capital city of Kyiv. Now Russian troops are massing to attack the east. The foreign minister of Ukraine predicts it will be the biggest battle of the war. Russia has appointed a new military commander. He's known as the Butcher of Syria for his cruelty against the civilian population there. The coming carnage has many more Ukrainians fleeing for safety. Dale Hurd begins our coverage.
Having failed to take the capital of Kyiv, Russian forces are preparing for what could be a major showdown with Ukrainian forces in the east. New satellite images show a massive military convoy of tanks, artillery, and other vehicles 8 miles long, now heading toward the nation's second-largest city, Kharkiv, already partially leveled after weeks of Russian shelling. It's Vladimir Putin's Plan B, after his forces were repulsed from the capital.
The Russians lost and the Ukrainians won the battle for Kyiv. Kyiv stands despite Russia's effort to conquer the capital city of their neighbor. They were unable to do that, and they suffered a significant military defeat there.
A sign of the Russian defeat at Kyiv is Vladimir Putin's appointment of a new commander in Ukraine, General Alexander Dvornikov, notorious for leading Russia's brutal campaign in Syria in 2015. Retired General David Petraeus says Dvornikov is known as the Butcher of Syria.
The hallmark of the Russian forces so far has been indiscipline, not discipline. It has been violation of the Geneva Convention and the law of land warfare and so forth.
In a show of solidarity over the weekend, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson walked the streets of Kyiv with Ukrainian President Zelensky. The White House says there's no plan for Joe Biden to visit. According to the UN, more than 10 million Ukrainians have fled their homes since the Russian invasion began. 1/4 of them are now in Poland. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
And as Ukrainian citizens flood across the border into Poland, CBN's Operation Blessing is there to greet them. Among them, 2 women who spoke about how the war destroyed their village, their escape to Poland, and the warm welcome they received from Operation Blessing.
We didn't believe it at first. When it all started, my younger brother knocked on the door and said the war had begun. We looked at him and said, "What kind of war? Are you crazy? We're in the 21st century. It's impossible to have a war." But we were there when the bombs started flying in Kyiv. Then we believed.
Natasha and Dasha hid with their families as the war raged around them.
Our defenses couldn't hold them back. There were a lot of soldiers and they stopped in our village. Then the lights and gas went out. People were scared and panicking. Many of us hid in our basements. There were explosions everywhere and machine gun fire.
After a few days, it was clear to Natasha and Dasha that they needed to escape, but Russian soldiers blocked their path.
There was a way where you could walk or go by car, and at the beginning the soldiers allowed us to go to where our army was, but later they closed this road and didn't allow us to go.
We tried to leave the village 3 or 4 times.
Finally, the 2 women made it safely to Poland, but they grieve over the life they left behind.
Today, I received a call from my grandfather, who lives in my house. He did not want to leave the village, but now he has. He said, "The village is no more. It was fully destroyed. The bombs hit people's houses indiscriminately."
Our hope is that this will end soon and we'll be reunited with other families. It's very hard to get away from it all.
Thanks to the support of Operation Blessing Partners, we have teams on the ground helping provide support to many refugees like Natasha and Dasha.
There is so much help provided for us. We came filled with fear and didn't know where to go. But people here understand. They're getting involved in helping us. This is good.
You can help Operation Blessing in these disaster relief efforts. Simply call 1-800-700-7000. Let us know that you want to give to Operation Blessing's Disaster Relief Fund. You can write to us as well at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Simply note Disaster Relief Fund in the memo line of your check. And if you like to, you can text instead OB Crisis to 71777. And of course, you can always visit our website, cbn.com and ob.org. Anything you're able to do is greatly needed and appreciated. After the fall of the Soviet Union, American Christians helped to spread the gospel in Ukraine. That's why many U.S. churches have a deep love and connection to its people. Charlene Aaron introduces us to one former missionary who's working to help the war-torn country. For him, the pain is personal.
Dr. Rodger Murchison has traveled to Ukraine several times for missions work. Since the war began, he's been in contact with families there. Each message brings a different emotion, ranging from heartbreak to hope because of their faith.
It breaks my heart. Not only what I see on television, but what I realize, these are people just like you and like me, living their lives, going to work, going to school, going to church. Then all of a sudden their world is turned upside down.
For 25 years, Dr. Rodger Murchison served with First Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia. His ministry included traveling to Ukraine as part of the Dnipro Hope Mission, a group with the vision of sharing the gospel throughout the country. He told me much of his missionary work involved the elderly and disabled in the capital city of Kyiv.
We came, I think, Charlene, to live out Matthew 25:40. Inasmuch as you've done it unto one of the least of these, you've done unto me.
Now many of his friends live in the war zone and tell him about the danger of caring for those unable to evacuate.
Hello, Roger and Margaret. We are safe. Our part of Kyiv is safe, but every night Russian throw bombs on 2 or 3 houses in the city, and we don't know which houses will be next. Everybody understands that it may be my house or your house next time. And so every night 2 or 3 houses are destroyed in Kyiv.
God our Father in heaven, today we lift Ukraine in prayer and ask for your mercy and healing.
Murchison recently organized this citywide prayer rally for the people of Ukraine.
And here they came, Baptists and Methodists and Catholics and Presbyterians and Episcopalians, Jewish friends, Islamic friends, and they all came. They all came to pray.
Prayers that are helping to strengthen believers a world away.
Where some would feel like, in a war zone, are you being downtrodden? Their hearts leaped up. They said, this is when your faith gets stronger, when they were tested. So I have been so impressed with the resilience and the strength of not only them physically and emotionally, but spiritually.
And touched those involved to give.
That $5,000 is already in Kiev, and it's moving about, helping people all over Ukraine. And so I do tell friends, we need to pray, but let's put some feet and voices to those prayers to say we're going to help in tangible ways.
For Murchison, he hopes that means returning to Ukraine, where the mission is more important now than ever.
And we're going to be the hands of our Lord. If it means just picking up bricks and moving them out of the way, if it means hugging someone, if it means saying, I'm here representing the Lord Jesus Christ. You have not been forgotten.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Augusta, Georgia.
Coming up, semiconductors are essential for virtually everything in today's digital world, but now the U.S. is facing a shortage. We're going to see what's being done to turn that situation around when we come back. Semiconductors are crucial in our digital world for powering an online economy, and they play a huge role in our nation's cybersecurity. America, though, is now facing an alarming shortage of these vital chips. The good news, a multi-billion-dollar rescue plan is underway. It's happening in Ohio. Heather Sells brings us the details.
Intel's $20 billion investment will go in right here. Many see it as a sign that America's heartland is reviving, that those seeking high-tech jobs will not have to leave home for the coasts.
You don't win the game in the fourth quarter by just showing up then.
Kenny McDonald says Columbus business leaders have followed that game plan by calling semiconductor makers for 10 years, making the Intel deal all the more rich.
As somebody who's been an economic developer for over 25 years, this really is the Super Bowl.
The multi-billion-dollar investment is the largest economic development package in state history and Intel's first new manufacturing site in 40 years. It means 3,000 new jobs that carry an average salary of $135,000, plus 7,000 construction jobs and more. Intel is committed to building 2 chip factories, or fabs, just outside of Columbus, near a new Albany business park, and the site can accommodate up to 8. In 10 years, Intel plans to reach that capacity with a total investment reaching $100 billion.
I think the final thing was we were hungry. You know, we wanted them to come.
Governor Mike DeWine is elated. As a lifelong resident, he is well aware of the decades of decline endured by his home state and the entire Rust Belt. Winning the Intel bid marks a renaissance moment.
It really sends a signal that Ohio and the Midwest is certainly in the game in regard to, manufacturing anything.
Until now, the heartland has found itself in the tech industry's rearview mirror. Mark Murrow at the Brookings Institution follows the tech geography.
It's not spread extremely widely. It's highly concentrated in a very short list of big coastal superstar metros.
Murrow says that's a problem for those in Middle America.
They're cut off in some ways from some of the most vibrant sources of jobs and social and economic mobility.
It's why the Ohio decision could signal that the tech industry needs and is capable of geographic diversity. Columbus area banker Laura Tussing says it could slow the flow of those leaving the state for better jobs.
People are going to be able to make career progressions and expand their businesses, within our state. They don't have to go somewhere else now.
This move could also provide much needed momentum for America's fragile semiconductor industry. That's the mentality that McDonald says kept his team going.
It wasn't just about Ohio. It was about solving a global issue and a national priority. And that got us through some tough days.
A shortage decades in the making is now underscored by the conflict in Ukraine and other supply chain problems. Thanks to offshore manufacturing and foreign competition over the last 30 years, the U.S. has watched its share of global semiconductor manufacturing drop from 37% to 12%. It's a profound loss given that semiconductors power the entire digital economy.
We're seeing very vulnerable, shaky supply chains right now, and it's disrupting the U.S. economy. It's contributed to the major inflation challenge we faced this year.
Of course, just one major investment won't solve the country's supply chain and national security issues, nor can they be solved overnight.
It shows the possibility, and it hopefully heralds further investment.
But it could put the U.S. on the right track, especially if Congress passes the CHIPS Act, which would provide some $50 billion to support this manufacturing at home. For now, McDonald and his economic development team have their work cut out for them.
It's a totally new game. So we got another field to run now, and we're on the 1 yard line.
The new game includes building the factories, sourcing and training the workforce, and creating communities around them that maintain a high quality of life.
We have a lot of work ahead of us, and we're just pumped up to do it.
If Intel succeeds here, not only could it mean a silicon heartland, it could shift chip production back to the U.S. and strengthen America's supply chains, economy, and national security. Reporting in Central Ohio, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Still ahead, Disney joins an ad campaign that's targeting politicians. FaithWire's Tre Goins-Phillips joins us with a look at the protest over Disney's battle against Florida's parental rights in education law and the protest over Disney's, quote, woke policies. The story's coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. There is increasing controversy in what many call Disney Corporation's woke policies. It comes as the CEO recently came out against Florida's new parental rights in education bill. The law is set to begin July 1st, and it bars educators from teaching students in grades pre-K through third grade classrooms about sexual orientation and gender identity. And joining us now with more on this is Tre Goins-Phillips of FaithWire.com. So there's news that Disney is now doubling down over its disagreement with this education law. How's that happening?
So there are several things, Ephraim, that Disney is doing. It's really a laundry list of things that the company is doing both internally and externally. One, the company told employees, executives told employees last week and in late March and now in early April, of course, that the company wants to advance more LGBTQ character narratives. Disney is also reportedly teaming up with Comcast, Paramount, and Warner Media with a GLAAD-produced ad campaign that features a transgender teenager. That ad will begin airing soon. Also, Disney's corporate president, Katie Burke, said that the next generation, Generation Z, is more pro-LGBT, and Disney needs to, quote, get with it by advancing and endorsing more of those lifestyles in their movies, TV shows, ad campaigns, etc.
Now, I understand Disney's CEO apologized to his LGBT employees. What was the apology about?
So it was Bob Chapek, the Walt Disney Company's CEO. He said that Disney needs to make more changes quickly to advance the rights and interests of LGBT employees. He apologized, saying that he should have been a better ally. He was referring to the fact that initially on the Florida bill that you mentioned at the top, he tried to stay apolitical and didn't want to say anything about it. He received a lot of backlash for that, internally and externally, from advocates of the LGBT community wanting him to be more vociferously condemnatory of the bill. That apologizing for, saying that he should have been more forceful in his condemnation, and obviously he has been since.
Last week, worship leader Sean Feucht, along with some other Christians and conservatives, held a rally in California over not just Florida's bill, but also what they are calling, and some are calling, Disney's woke policy. Tell us about how things are going, how things went at that event, and are more rallies planned?
So the event went pretty well, seemingly. There were several hundred people there at the Burbank headquarters for the Walt Disney Company. One of the people who was there was actually a current Disneyland employee who encouraged her fellow cast members at Disney to not be afraid to stand up for what they believe in and to stand up for righteousness, because she said, you're not alone. There are other people like that, like me, conservatives, Christians at the company, and they shouldn't be afraid to raise their voices. Also, Sean Feucht said that he's planning now to potentially hold a rally in Anaheim at the Disneyland Park headquarters, and then at Orlando, of course, where the four-park Walt Disney World resort is located.
Before we let you go, what can we expect on the next Faith Wire?
So coming up on this Faith Wire, we actually spoke with Answers in Genesis president Ken Ham about how, as Christians, we can lovingly and boldly stand up for truth in a culture that is increasingly opposed to biblical standards.
All right, Tre Goins-Phillips of FaithWire.com. Thank you so much for your time. I want to remind you at home that you can catch FaithWire on the CBN News Channel at 8:30 Eastern this evening. You can also find it on the CBN News app. You can watch it there on demand. Stay with us. Your Monday Motivation is what's coming up next. It's time for your Monday Motivation. Today, I leave you with this thought. 4 simple words. Peace be with you. It is God's desire for you. Yesterday, today, and always. He speaks peace to you, and He brings peace to all situations. Invite Him in, and you invite in peace. With that word, I encourage you to make this a marvelous Monday, and be sure to have yourself a blessed Holy Week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. The address is now right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Make it a marvelous Monday and join us right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.